2 organizations have moved to the cloud and helped to create a secure working environment for their team. Just want to make sure. My name is Michelle Chung, and I'm the director of True, a public-private partnership with a mission to increase tech-enabled jobs in Hawaii. We all face similar business problems. How do I take the first step in digital transformation? How do I engage customers during the pandemic? How can I leverage technology in a better way? True serves to support organizations in Hawaii by sharing how innovative companies have solved these common business problems with the hope that it'll help you accelerate your adoption of technology and innovation. If you listen to the speakers and think, I could use a solution, then we want to support you in making that happen, whether it's with follow-up discussion, technical details, or a demo. That's literally my job, so please do reach out if we can support you. True is an initiative of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. If you're interested to learn how you or your organization can be part of True, or to see other use cases or solutions, please visit hec.org/true or connect with me, Michelle C. at hawaiiexecutivecollaborative.org. I'd like to introduce and thank the other organizations who helped to bring you these events. HEDC, Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, is a state agency attached to DBED. Their mandate is to grow the tech economy and the workforce here in Hawaii, which is closely aligned with True's mission. They're a state agency behind the Coursera Workforce Recovery. So if you're interested in upskilling, visit hedc.org. The Entrepreneur Sandbox is a co-working facility in Kaka'ako owned by HEDC and managed by Box Jelly. It's Hawaii's front door to innovation, where we stand up technology, showcase it, and provide open space for collaboration. In addition to True Innovation, this group brings you Women in Tech Series and mini tech job fairs. We have a great and timely topic today. Working remotely is morphing into a more permanent reality. The stigma associated with working from home prior to COVID-19 has disappeared. Today, we'll look at solutions that make this necessity possible and even more effective. Our agenda for today is that we'll see a solutions overview to set the stage, and then Kelly will lead a discussion with Jeff and Adrienne about how these 2 organizations have taken steps to leveraging cloud solutions, their path, and why they made the decisions to do so. We'll follow that with a Q&A. Before we begin, let me just share a couple of housekeeping items. The session is being recorded. Please feel free to send in your questions during the session in the Q&A function. We'll address them at the end of the webinar. At the end of the session, you'll have access to a survey so you can provide your feedback. If you'd like to continue the conversation on today's solutions, you can indicate so in the survey as well. We've seen digital transformation leaping forward out of necessity. In recent BCG survey, 75% of executives agree that digital transformation is becoming more urgent in light of the COVID-19 crisis. And 65% have said they anticipate an increase in their investment in digital transformation. As companies build digital resilience, they're doing it where they need it. Many have increased their investments in secure working technology and reduce their capital expenditure to respond to these immediate needs. Research and advisory company Gartner has found that businesses looking beyond COVID-19 pandemic are going to be facing a new kind of challenge, managing a new and more complicated hybrid workforce. The study found that 82% of business leaders say that their organizations plan to let employees continue to work from home, at least in some of the time, while 47% plan to allow employees to do so permanently. When you first joined this webinar, you were asked a couple of questions. Here are the results. Although we're facing different challenges working remotely, we hope this session helps you to find solutions to some of these challenges. It's also helpful to understand what tools your organizations are using in this ever-changing world. Without further ado, I would like to stop my share screen and introduce Kelly Ueoka, who is the president of Pacxa, an IT solutions provider in the Island Holdings family of companies. Kelly oversees the company's day-to-day operations and the expansion of Pacxa's products and services in Hawaii and beyond. His role includes enhancing Pacxa's core technology solutions and capabilities in collaboration with global partners to offer tools to help Hawaii businesses perform faster, more securely, and with greater operational efficiency. Kelly has over 15 years of technical consulting experience and oversees all technology, engineering, and consulting roles within Pacxa. He's a Microsoft and infrastructure solutions architect and a certified solutions expert for hybrid cloud technologies with extensive experience in architecting and modernizing complex infrastructure and application environments, as well as developing advanced cybersecurity solutions. He will be sharing a solutions overview so we can get a little more info on the tools that Adrienne and Jeff will be sharing later on. Kelly, welcome.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it. So as you touched on, with the topic being secure remote work and our extensive, partnership with Microsoft, I wanted to present on how we're now helping enable secure remote work by leveraging the Microsoft hybrid cloud platform that includes Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, the Office suite of applications, and another really fast-growing technology from Microsoft, which is called Windows Virtual Desktop. So with that, just really simply, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Office, Microsoft Office, and their shift into this model where if you move to Microsoft 365, which includes things like email, collaboration through SharePoint, and the Office apps, they've made it very easy for companies to license and then also deploy. Traditionally it's been painful to, every 3 years go through an Office upgrade on the desktop. And the technology's come very far to where we can get it on a cadence that's sort of delivered as a service now. So along with, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Exchange, SharePoint, and the like, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with, there's a bunch of other software that organizations can take advantage of, which we'll talk a little bit about later, because it comes with the Office 365 suite, or now the rebranded Microsoft 365 suite of products. So the licensing, for all of this is very flexible. A lot of times companies ask us, well, how much does it cost and what do I get? And you do get a lot. So this is just touching on, the high level on what you would get. But there's a lot more, and a lot more to utilize, actually. One of the other things, as people have gone remote, is that the importance of online meetings, with video, chat, voice, having conversations with customers, even coworkers, holding an update, where you want to share content easily, and then also co-work on content at the same time, is very, very possible now with the Microsoft suite, largely in part due to one of their other fastest growing technologies in an application called Microsoft Teams. And this also comes with the Microsoft 365 suite of software. So it's very dynamic where they're heading with this. For remote work and the security part, we kind of feel like they've made it fairly ubiquitous, where you can allow people to use Teams from anywhere, whether it be on their PC connected to their home network. You could be on a Mac connected to a home network, iPad, Android devices. And the security framework that's wrapped around it is fairly invisible, but it's one of the industry leading cybersecurity platforms out there today, and it protects all of the infrastructure that your data is hosted on. So we have a lot of trust in this platform. And we see it growing very quickly because a lot of times people feel like when I move to Microsoft 365, it's just for my email, but that's very, very not true. I mean, that's not true. There's a bunch of other software to take advantage of like this. One of the other fast growing, as I mentioned, one of the other fast growing technologies for Microsoft is this Windows Virtual Desktop concept. It's hosted in Azure, which is their public cloud. And so for the first time ever, Microsoft has actually allowed customers to run a specialized version of Windows 10 that's, again, hosted in their public cloud. So taking advantage of the cybersecurity framework that I mentioned earlier, that's protecting Teams, Exchange Online, SharePoint, and all that other infrastructure is also in front of Windows Virtual Desktop. And so it's for the first time ever allowing customers to use a special version of Windows that is multi-session based. So I don't know if people are familiar with the old terminal services from Microsoft, where you could have one server and 15 people logging into that one server with their session virtualized. They've actually allowed that now on Windows 10 client version. So you can actually have 10 users logging into Windows 10 at the same time remotely. And taking advantage of all the engineering that's inside of Azure, they've pre-built these custom images for customers to take advantage of, where everything is already pre-packaged. So you get Windows 10 plus Office 365 pre-installed with all of the enhancements for being able to use Teams in a remote session, and that includes video and voice calling. Delivered down to virtually any endpoint. It could be an iPad, it could be an Android device, it could be a Mac or Windows PC. The deployment, the capability around deployment with public cloud is rapidly accelerated. To build an infrastructure like this on premises could take weeks to months, but hosted in public Azure, taking advantage of the power of the infrastructure running there, you can provision an environment in less than 10 minutes. And, albeit very vanilla, it still helps accelerate timelines when, especially during the pandemic and having to stand up a remote workforce quickly. The other part of this is that, as I mentioned, it's one of their fastest growing technologies. And in this day and age, one of the security controls that oftentimes gets overlooked because it's so common is your identity. So for folks familiar with things like Active Directory, which is, been the de facto standard for corporate identities, corporate digital identities over the last, I want to say 20, 25 years, it's now shifting to a cloud-enabled model. So for folks that have moved with technologies like Office 365 or Microsoft 365, Teams, SharePoint Online, Exchange Online, all of those technologies require a secured identity from Microsoft with this Azure Active Directory hosted identities in their public cloud. So for folks wanting to move with Windows Virtual Desktop quickly, all of the security, again, and including the identity, is already there and in place. And alongside that comes the capability to enable other security technologies like two-factor authentication, meaning when you log in to your virtual desktop or any Office 365 service, you get prompted for a PIN, whether that be on your phone or your PC or your Mac or other device. There's token-based authentication that you can leverage as well. So it's very easily deployed. It's easily managed. It's per a service level agreement that's delivered from Microsoft. And the nice thing, again, as I showed in the first slide, was that anyone who uses Microsoft 365 is probably already licensed for this from a Windows perspective. So you would get the Windows 10 licensing also included with Microsoft 365. So it is, again, as I mentioned, it's one of their fastest growing technologies. They've made a huge investment into this. There is the ability to also run technology like this on premises, which we're also seeing in light of the pandemic. However, I think, as a lot more companies start looking at cloud technologies like Office 365, this is also going to be right there alongside the suite of software, providing more value for the customer. How we secure all of this, security can be a really broad concept. Cybersecurity can be a really broad concept, but Microsoft, again, has made a huge investment into securing this infrastructure, because as companies move forward and they put their desktop environment into public cloud, there's hundreds, thousands of emerging threats seemingly on a daily basis. And, they've quickly, I think, positioned themselves as a cybersecurity provider through companies like Pacxa that can take advantage of their software to protect infrastructure all the way from the endpoints connecting into our Windows Virtual Desktop solution and vice versa. So, connecting in from an iPad doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% secure. I mean, nothing will be 100% secure. And in this day and age, we assume that the bad guys are already somewhere waiting to take advantage of a mistake. So this new model in protecting the client infrastructure from the cloud is leveraging all of the intelligence that Microsoft collects. I mean, there are almost billions of signals that they collect on a daily basis, and they're analyzing that and coming up with prevalent threats and making it easy for customers to take advantage of it and say, well, we don't really know technically what that is, but we know it's bad and we're getting alerts on it and we need to remediate it. And so we really feel like this technology has come a very long way. Oftentimes we get a little nervous about having things hosted somewhere else. However, in this instance, again, as I mentioned, to build an infrastructure like this on premises would take, it would take a lot of investment, it would take a lot of time, and then the evolution of it as it gets, as new releases come out and new functionality is released, keeping up with it is very hard, especially for a lot of the organizations we work with, because Microsoft is a huge, just like everybody else, Google, IBM, Amazon Web Services, they have massive infrastructure. This is what they do. So we've started to rely on them for a lot of the heavy lifting, and then companies looking at firms like Pacxa to help deliver on it, to secure the infrastructure that we put in cloud. So one of the other things, as I was talking about earlier, is that you get so much, you get this suite of software. And again, people think of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 as just using Exchange Online or moving my email and my Office applications like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook. But you get a lot more. And I think one of the things we wanted to talk about in the next segment is this concept of enterprise social networking, and this acquisition that Microsoft made, I want to say maybe it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, with a social networking technology called Yammer, which they've adopted into Microsoft 365, kind of as a social networking platform for the enterprise. And we use it internally, and I have to say we've gotten quite a bit of traction. There's excitement around being able to create a community inside of the organization for people to share ideas, and also just be part of something inside the company. And so this is just one of the products, lesser known products that you would get with Microsoft 365, but has a lot of value, has a lot of added value. And so we'll touch on some of the others as well in the next segment. So with that, Michelle, thank you.
Great, thanks, Kelly. So next, I'd like to introduce our two panelists. The first is Adrienne Chee, SVP and CIO at Central Pacific Bank. Congratulations on your promotion.
Hi, Michelle, thank you.
Hey there. Adrienne is a leader that's taken innovation seriously. With over 30 years of experience in banking technology, Adrienne is a key team member helping to drive innovation at Central Pacific Bank. Adrienne has experience in managing complex technology projects, strategic implementations, and company collaboration. Last year, Adrienne led the transformation of the bank's collaboration platform, introducing a new way of working for CPP's employees. Timely. Adrienne's deeply rooted in Hawaii and is no stranger to hard work, helping on the family's farm in Kona, where she travels every harvest season to lend a hand. She earned a Bachelor's of Science from HPU and serves as a board member of Junior Achievement of Hawaii. Our next panelist is Jeff Fabry. Welcome, Jeff. Jeff is a CIO and CSO for Island Holdings, responsible for all information technology services for the organization. Jeff brings vision and strategic focus for building a comprehensive and flexible IT organization. His teams help transform Island Insurance from a traditional paper-intensive and manual process-oriented insurance carrier into an efficient technology-forward organization. Jeff is a key member of the executive strategic planning team involved with many strategic objectives, including distribution channel diversification, new product development, long-term revenue growth, and consistent profitability. Welcome, Adrienne and Jeff.
Thank you.
Good
Kelly,
morning.
please.
Thank you, Michelle.
Good morning. Kelly, please take it away.
Yeah, so thanks for joining. I'm so happy and privileged to have these two technologists and business leaders speaking with us today, and I appreciate the opportunity to get your thoughts on why cloud and how you made it happen for your respective organizations. So with that, I guess I'll pose this to both of you. Adrienne, your experiences with the Microsoft Cloud so far, why did you decide to go that route, and what prompted the change inside of Central Pacific Bank?
Sure. Yeah, Kelly, thank you. Great question. So, for us, our strategy has always been cloud first. So one, it was a perfect fit. But, we have been for many years on, I'm embarrassed to say, but Lotus Notes, right? So we were one of the few, warriors still using Lotus Notes, and it was an on-prem solution. So, it required a lot of dedicated resources to manage the platform. And, it was just, again, we look at our core competencies of our IT organization, and managing platforms and dedicating resources is just not part of the core competencies, right? We want to refocus our IT resources on banking and helping to grow the business. And so, cloud first has always been a fit for our organization. And so, it's refocusing and realigning back to our core competencies of our organization.
Yeah, thanks for that. Jeff, I know that one of the other Island Holdings family of companies also went in a similar direction, taking advantage of that entire suite of software that we earlier that I presented on. So similarly, why cloud, and why now? What prompted you to make the change there?
Sure. So from an Island Holdings perspective, we're made up of a number of companies across the islands. Island Insurance, Atlas Insurance, Pyramid Insurance, IC International, Tradewind Capital are just a few of them. And over the last few years, we've also adopted a cloud-first strategy, and really it's about reducing the cost and the complexity of our data centers and infrastructure, moving that into a more secure fashion into the cloud, and reducing the risk from an on-premises data center perspective. So, what we found is over the years, it's been increasingly difficult to hire people, build, and continue to maintain that legacy infrastructure to the level, the technology that it requires. So by moving into the cloud, we've been able to simplify our networks and data centers. Many of our companies continue to implement that across the remainder of them.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So as we, talk about, everybody's talking about cloud, especially stateside with a lot of the Fortune 500 just making a huge investment into some type of hybrid or full-blown cloud technology. But, if somebody was interested, where do you start? And so, Adrienne, if you didn't mind, briefly describing how you even develop a plan, especially from looking at legacy platform like Lotus Notes and saying, okay, I want to go straight to Office 365. That can be a huge challenge. And for those that really don't understand, where do you even start with something like that? And as a follow-up to that, as you migrate, and get buy-in from the organization to move that direction, did you decide on a, phased approach or kind of this big bang where you cut over on the weekend and, people come in on Monday and it's live? So.
Yeah. So, developing the plan to migrate to the cloud, this was all new to us. We've always been an on-prem solution in terms of our collaboration space. So, the best thing for us was to hire a partner, and, we hired Pacxa. We knew what we wanted. We knew we wanted local presence. We knew we wanted, a company that was locally with experience, but particularly in Lotus Notes to Office and Outlook migration. And, we did a lot of looking around and researching local presence within Honolulu that could help us. And every question we asked, Kelly, everything came back to Pacxa. And so it was a pretty simple decision for us in terms of hiring you as a partner, your company as a partner, to help us with the migration. We could not have done it without your team. We had no idea what to expect with Office 365 and or how to even begin planning, but your team came in, they took the lead, coached us through the process, helped us develop the project plans, the migration plans, the timelines. And even, for us, we talk about the migration and, the bank, we do things always very, very fast, very quick. Your team is well aware of that. And so, your team put in a lot of time in coaching us through this, roping us back when we needed to, realigning, resetting. But, again, we wouldn't have been able to do it without you folks. And then, and our migration was completely phased. It had to be phased. There was, we were doing the entire company, so we did not opt for a big bang over the weekend. And actually in the implementation planning with Pacxa, it was nice to hear the options that we had, and it was nice to understand that a migration and a phased approach, week by week, and actually it wasn't even week by week. I think we did it like every 3 days. And so, it was fast, it was rapid, but, it went really well. It definitely went well.
Appreciate that. So yeah, I do recall, Adrienne, and it was incredible that going from Lotus Notes, to a modern technology like Office 365 or even, Exchange and Outlook. Pacxa has been involved with that before, believe it or not, for a very large organization in Hawaii. Right. And I have to say, managing the change, and we were so thoroughly impressed by, the vision that you had at the bank, to move it forward. And, with that, Jeff, similarly, I know, throughout the Island Holdings family of companies and where you started, as you've articulated in the past, the goal is to have, network capability on premises, but everything else, cloud. So that's in my opinion, it's probably even a more daunting, like I want to get rid of everything on premises and put it in the cloud. So how did you start, or really how did you even come up with that vision?
Well, for me, it's all about eliminating our data centers. I mean, that's really the goal, the end goal. And each of our companies is a little bit, has a different portfolio of technology that they use, and there are different challenges in each of them. So we started with the simpler companies, Tradewind Capital and Island Holdings itself, small number of employees. Primary applications are the Office suite, so that was pretty easy, moving them into Exchange Online and Office 365. And at that point, we have no data center. It's just a switch router firewall, and that's it. And everybody can work remotely wherever they're at in the world, and it's all great. Our other companies were a bit more challenging because of the complexity of their environment. So, the one that we're working on right now and that we've just finished is Pyramid Insurance. They are now 100% in the cloud. We've eliminated their data center. Should be powering it down here in the next few weeks. Again, we moved to Exchange Online, Office 365. They had an on-prem Exchange server. They were using the boxed version of Office 365 or Microsoft Office. So from an OCM perspective, it wasn't quite as challenging. I think the bigger challenges with the more complex companies are the legacy systems, the business systems. And what we're doing there is we're moving them into a SaaS environment, which is challenging because it really requires the business to look at new tools, rethink the way they're doing things, change their workflows, and be able to adapt to some of those technologies. A lot of our companies had still old client server technology in place for legacy systems, and those do not scale well to the cloud. Just moving the server from our data center to the AWS or Azure data center really doesn't buy anything and actually causes some problems. So really it's changing that whole application infrastructure to a cloud-based solution, which we've done successfully in Pyramid. We also, and once we did that, that really opened a lot of opportunities for what you were talking about, Kelly, with Windows Virtual Desktop. So we did have the need for some people who work remotely to have desktops, remote desktops or virtual desktops, and we're able to provision those in WVD. And since everything's in the cloud, whether it's on their personal laptop or their iPad or WVD or wherever it is, it really doesn't matter anymore because there's no direct tie-in back to a data center here locally. So we're just going to continue to implement that strategy across our companies, one at a time. And some of them are going to be a long time to do, but we've had a couple successes.
Terrific. Yeah, I mean that's I can't articulate how how quote unquote visionary that is. To say I want to transform the entire application infrastructure into a software as a service based model. And in the past we've seen a lot of software as a service come and go, but I do certainly feel like it's been maturing over time. And now to have a strategy like that, I mean, quite frankly, I wish other folks thought along the lines of where you guys are, because there is a lot of benefit, and it does allow the business to get refocused on what's important versus managing these really legacy things. The interesting point, Jeff, about taking that infrastructure and just moving it actually causes some problems, it's a good point, because that's true. Just taking, lifting and shifting a server into AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or whatever it might be is not without its challenges. And so with that, wanted to quickly ask about the benefits, so if you guys could comment briefly on the status of the project and what technologies have been implemented so far. As I mentioned, you get so much with the Microsoft 365 suite, and these things like Yammer being packaged in. Adrienne, can you comment on the status of the overarching implementation and what you guys have done so far with Microsoft 365?
Yeah, Kelly, the organization has adapted well to the change to Office 365, and we're grateful for that. We're grateful for, our user community and their acceptance of the change. We've done, the overall project status of the migration is we're done. 100% of the company is on Office 365 and, as well as the mobile platform as well. And so that is, our full collaboration services across the organization. And, in terms of the Office suite, we've used a lot. We've done some Power Automate workflows, which is, the bots and the AI piece of that, Microsoft 365 offers. We've done Microsoft Forms. Most recently, we've done so much. We've done a lot of integration with third-party applications such as DocuSign, right? Our e-signature, and so our users can now DocuSign directly through Office 365 and Outlook without getting out of their Outlook client. But most recently, we have actually implemented Yammer across our organization, and it's something that was driven by our digital marketing team. So they are really the champions of this solution and getting the company engaged. And so that was a huge, for IT, we really appreciated the digital marketing team taking the lead on utilizing this Yammer platform. But, certainly it's with us being mostly remote workforce and people being, not face-to-face, Yammer has given us, has brought our community closer together and staying in touch. What are people doing? What are we, how are we doing, day to day? And, we have, we've built communities around, clubs, for example, hiking club or surfing club, or, and so we can share some of the experiences that we're doing, what people are doing inside of work and outside of work. There's just so much with the Microsoft and Office 365 product. And there's a lot that there's a lot that we've done, and there's a lot more that we still need to explore. And I'm sure we're going to be, activating soon. So.
Terrific. Yeah, I appreciate that, Adrienne. One of the things that I noticed as the pandemic, is kind of starting to take its effect on Hawaii, and especially stateside. Deloitte had an article about staying human in this now even more so digitally connected world, and I think technologies like Yammer, helps do that in a working environment. And for the bank, I can really see some of the benefits there. Jeff, for you, I think if you want to touch on lightly, what was implemented, but more importantly, I think the question, along the lines of exiting the data center is, do you feel like it enhances your overall cybersecurity posture, or does it improve, security in the organization as you completely exit the data center and move the, apps and infrastructure?
Yeah, it certainly makes it much more simple to deal with. For us, if you look at Pyramid, which is the company that we, our last one that we're getting ready to shut down the data center, you get rid of all the on-prem servers, all the, we had a vSphere virtual infrastructure, all that stuff has to be maintained and patched and tested. And, once you eliminate all that, it comes down to a router, switch, firewall, endpoint. Obviously your endpoint security posture changes somewhat with Office 365. You get better security from that perspective. But you're still, the endpoint is the endpoint. But you've eliminated all that stuff in the middle. So, you're just primarily worried about the endpoints and the firewall, and everything else is taken care of by Microsoft or the vendors for the most part. So from a security perspective, at least for some of our organizations, it greatly simplifies it, and greatly simplifies the maintenance, especially from if you look at Pyramid, we have a home office and I think five or six branch offices. We just opened up a new branch office downtown, and from start to finish, before, by the time we leased the space, I think we brought that up in 2 weeks. Renting the space, buying the switch, we just popped in a switch, a firewall, and a router and turned it on. There was no servers, no VPNs, no connections back to the home office, using Microsoft Teams phones, so there's no SIP trunks or anything else. I mean, it's just so simple.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, I think as the technology continues to evolve in that direction, and I certainly got my start working on, building out those technologies that you mentioned, Jeff, like IP, voice, SIP trunking, all the configurations that go into it. It's no different, I think, from the amount of work that would go into, building an enterprise application system on premises and having to secure it and maintain it. What comes along with the hardware getting deprecated, and going end of life seemingly, every 3 years now. I mean, and with the evolution of how fast, technology is changing, I think it's a huge advantage to take advantage, to look at cloud and use what's already there and what will be evolved much faster than we can move, or than I could. Certainly I don't pretend to be able to build something like that at scale. So yeah, thank you for that. I think, as we talked about, where do you start and moving forward, and, how to actually execute, coming from a legacy technology like Lotus Notes, Adrienne, and I can imagine the end user community, wanting a little bit more modern experience and having access remotely and things like that. It doesn't come without its challenges, right? And I think we talk about this all the time, but managing change inside the organization and what's unfamiliar, one of the things that comes with having legacy infrastructure is how to do it. I mean, if it's probably been there for years, the staff is well versed, knows how to manage, maintain, knows how to troubleshoot. But as you migrate and it gets a little bit more complex and unfamiliar, how did you guys, execute successfully, or what were the main, key points that you had to hit to execute successfully, and what were the major challenges with that?
Yeah, I think the key points, the successful key points for us was, making sure that our user experience through the migration was excellent, right? That they wouldn't experience any outages, any loss of calendar items or emails, notes if they had any notes or tasks. So I think that was our biggest challenge, was working backwards from what we expected for our users. And their experience, and trying to figure out how do we make sure that we cross our T's and we dot our I's. And so we put a lot of planning into just that, into delivering those specific results. The challenges, I think, that we had was, our IT shop was mainly on Lotus. We've been always on Lotus Notes for years. Our experiences was in Lotus Notes. I mean, to the point that we had experience in Outlook or even in Office 365 was in our own personal lives, right? We use Outlook for our own personal collaboration, but we didn't have a lot of experience in Outlook or Office 365 and what to expect. So we did have to lean on, your organization and your team members to help us out in that space. But time, I think, was our biggest challenge. We had we got the project approved, and our deliverable was to deliver during the summer of 2019, which was only a few months away. So, time was definitely our biggest challenge while trying to deliver the user experience and results that, everyone was expecting.
Yeah, thank you. I can imagine, that being a huge factor. And once you, especially with your, commentary on a phase approach and some of the business units getting it before others, and then, just hearing the boost in productivity and then wanting it, I can see how time is managing that becomes a challenge. Jeff, any commentary there on how you executed the move, and if there was any hurdles, what were they?
Yeah, well, I think the key for us was, and it really comes back to organizational change management, OCM, and adoption of technology and willingness to change. Obviously, nobody really likes to change, so that's always the most difficult part. And for me, the key, at least for, to start out with, was, doing our two smaller companies first, getting that win, and then being able for the various presidents and executives of the other companies to see the vision and understand what the end game was. And then once they got behind it, like at Pyramid, became much easier, because most of the challenges really lie in the user organization and even the IT organization being willing to embrace that change and embrace that vision, and push it forward and do what needs to be done. So luckily for Pyramid, Nolan Kawano and Scott Higashi are both great leaders, and I was able to work with them, and from a business perspective, radically change the way they did business and how they use technology to do their business. And as a result, not only did we simplify the technology, but I think if you ask them, I think our customer service improved significantly. Our timeliness, our workflows improved. There were just improvements across the board once we started retooling a lot of those workflows to use the technology that was available.
Well, that's great insight. And so, lastly, as a follow-up to the execution, it sounds like, Adrienne, you're now, making the investment or the time investment in evaluating the entire suite. As we talked about, there's probably, 20 plus technologies and applications that you would get with Microsoft 365. But at the core, right, and as we mentioned, the most important one probably being email, and now Teams for collaboration. After that portion of the project was done, do you have any lessons learned or advice, mainly with the project itself and delivering on, what you said you would for the organization? Any lessons learned or advice that you can give?
Yeah, I think the first thing for us in the lessons learned, and this is for anyone using a virtual desktop environment, but, had we had the time to do probably a lot more regression testing and understanding how the technologies work in a virtual desktop environment, we've had challenges with virtual desktop and the use of Teams. And it's not so much the technology, but it's more around how do we use Teams in a virtual environment. And, your team, Pacxa has been a big supporter of us in that. And I think that was one of our challenges, and we struggled with that. And we're still coming through that, that turbulence, and still getting our users comfortable with the technology and the different technologies, whether they use it in the bank or outside of the bank. And then I think, had we had the time, I think being able to introduce the Office 365 suite across the organization before we rolled out. We rolled it out with the intent and the idea around we're going to be improving. We're going to be getting off Lotus Notes, and we're going on to Office 365. So of course the excitement was, everyone was excited, like, it was finally. But had we had the opportunity and the time, I think introducing the Office suite of products, what it comes with, what we can do, and what we can look towards in the future, I think would have been a big benefit for us.
Oh, that is an excellent point. So as the earlier question with regards to Big Bang versus phased, it's kind of like planning for a, Big Bang in terms of utilization. So making sure you can minimize the investment ahead of time. And again, looking at, those 20, 25 plus, suite of software applications that you would get. And just as a note, I wanted to clarify. So your virtual desktop infrastructure running on VMware Horizon, and delivering that on premises with Teams inside of the virtual desktop, correct? I mean, that's what you're
correct. Correct. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Jeff, anything from you? Lessons learned for this, similar but very different all-in approach
Mhm.
to
Well,
cloud?
for us, I think what we learned and what was successful is that if we focus on, the Office 365 and the Exchange Online is a pretty easy sell, and it's pretty easy to paint that vision for the executive teams to understand the benefits of that. And that is probably, it's a challenging change, and it's a challenging implementation, but the partners like Pacxa, it makes it less difficult. The legacy applications are obviously a whole different can of worms, and a lot of our organizations, teams, and Office 365 and Exchange are more secondary tool sets as opposed to their primary business applications. But so for some of our organizations, we're going to come in with Exchange Online, Office 365, get a success, and then focus on the legacy applications, leveraging the successes we've had with our other companies. So it's kind of a snowball effect. Now that we've had 3 successful implementations, the other companies are starting to, hey, how about us? We want to do this too. So once you get it done, and once you get some success, then it becomes still challenging, but it's much more easy from a change perspective.
Terrific. Thank you. Really appreciate all of the insight. Very useful. I mean, there's things that I didn't even realize, especially this, Adrienne, with the use of the other suite of products. Looking at the AI, probably Power BI. You mentioned the Power Platform, which is something. I mean, we could take up a whole another hour talking about the Power Platform. Within Microsoft 365, and then the notion of taking everything and exiting the data center. Again, I see that as what's coming. I see that maybe not everybody can exit completely, but I think that there's a lot of benefit. And Jeff, as you hit it right on the head, it just makes it easier. Maintaining, again, legacy applications and infrastructure. I think it's a thing of the past. And so, really appreciate the time and the insight from both of you today. And thank you so much. And with that, I'll turn it back to Michelle. If there were any questions from the audience.
Yep. A big thank you to you guys for sharing this information. It feels like it's a cheat sheet for how to go, how to move to the cloud. I know I would have appreciated it when I was going through it. I'd like to open up Q&A for all of our speakers. If you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom. We do have one that came in. When researching the move to the cloud, did you look into other technologies such as Citrix or VMware to add on to the Microsoft functionalities?
I can start. For the bank, we were already on VMware. So, we didn't do any research or even entertain any change. VMware was what we were using, and that's what we stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for us, we are also a vSphere shop. So we have, Pyramid had a vSphere infrastructure. We also have one in some of our other companies. And again, once we, the cost and the complexity of maintaining that environment, it's a great environment, but it's, it takes a lot of cost to maintain. And once we made the decision to get rid of our file servers, move all that into OneDrive and SharePoint, get rid of our Exchange on-prem, which was, that's been a horrible, Exchange on-prem is a very, very difficult thing to deal with. That one thing made my life 1,000 times easier. But then you just end up with a handful of VDI on your VM, your very first stack. And we just started last week moving a bunch of our users, remote users, into WVD that Pat Kelly was talking about. And so far it's been performing well. And again, we don't have to maintain it, so.
Michelle, I just wanted to comment on that question. It's an excellent question because, you know, Citrix and VMware have been longtime providers on premises. People in the healthcare industry, you know, EMR is usually delivered through a technology that's provided by Citrix. And this move into cloud, you know, it doesn't really mean you get rid of Citrix. It doesn't really mean you'd even get rid of VMware to an extent, because now you can actually run VMware in AWS and or Azure. So if that's familiar to you and you want to virtualize servers, instead of doing it on premises, you can now actually do it inside of AWS and or Azure as well. And then Citrix, you know, and Microsoft have been partners for years. And so same thing, you're able to now run Citrix inside of Azure. So it's, you know, it keeps the familiarity, but like to Jeff's point, there's no hardware. There's none of the legacy, you know, maintenance involved with having to keep the infrastructure, you know, lights on, so to speak.
Great, thank you. So Kelly, you've worked with a lot of organizations to transition. What do you think are some of the key challenges that organizations face in doing so?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff hit it on the head. It's going to be OCM, organizational change management, because unlike, you know, Adrienne and Central Pacific Bank, really two visionary, you know, lines of thought behind, we're going to just bank on cloud. It's going to be organizational change management. I mean, if you want to take advantage of this technology, everybody has to buy in. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely painful to progress through.
Yep, great, thank you. And then I know that in our prep meeting, one of the things I enjoyed hearing about was the justification for going to the cloud. It's not always cost-based. Maybe you guys can share what some of the benefits are that you highlighted when you were proposing the change to the cloud.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was gonna say, I've kind of forgot to ask, but as a benefit, and I'm, you know, this would just be kind of an off the top of your head question, but for Adrienne and Jeff, is there a real, you know, do you realize any kind of cost benefit by moving to Microsoft 365, or have you, you know, experienced the cost savings anywhere in terms of the move?
I think for us, it's been more around, you know, resources and staffing and being able to repurpose their time towards, you know, strategic initiatives. You know, certainly, you know, to Jeff's point, getting rid of that on-premise infrastructure has definitely simplified IT and simplified our lives. You know, we can literally sleep at night, and that's you know, that's a big win already. But, you know, yeah, and so, you know, aside from that, I think, had we been on Lotus Notes when the pandemic hit, collaboration would have been horrible for us. I don't think we would have been able to work remotely so easily. You know, it just, we would have been in a really bad position. Definitely remote workforce, it's enabled us or enhanced tremendously our remote workforce capabilities.
Terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, so from my perspective, Kelly, I think, you know, for years, even myself, when I looked at the cost benefit analysis of 365 and Exchange Online, I tended to focus on the difference between the subscription cost and the cost of, you know, the box set. And, you know, if you just look at that, you know, if you do a 4-year upgrade cycle on your box, on your retail version, it ends up being about a wash. I mean, you don't really save any money. Where you really save the money is on the back end IT support and infrastructure. And, you know, and that's really why I was focused on getting rid of the data center, because that was huge. I mean, from a cost savings perspective, that was, you know, it's going to be millions of dollars of savings across the organization on an annual basis once we roll it out. So even if you look at the smaller organizations, we've probably saved, you know, $100,000, $200,000 a year just getting rid of that infrastructure, and your capital expense goes away. It's been a, you know, going all in has really made a big difference from an expense perspective.
Yeah. Oh, that is good. I mean, good to hear. I mean, and some of the cost analysis that we do, right, for companies who are evaluating Office 365 or any cloud-based technology, yeah, especially with the box versioning, like you mentioned, it is kind of a wash. Like there isn't really a huge cost savings you would realize upfront on the software acquisition. But to your point, yeah, getting rid of the infrastructure is massive. I mean, we can't say it enough that Adrienne can sleep at night. I mean, there's a huge. I think if that's the point to touch on, that's definitely it.
I mean, I do think there's definitely financial benefit, more from a soft perspective, moving from, the box version into 365, because using OneDrive and SharePoint, obviously your personal or your individual files are all protected and backed up. You don't have to deal with that anymore. You have a lot of benefit because you can run the applications on your mobile devices. You can run them on your home device. So from a user perspective, there definitely are some soft cost benefits that come along with 365, but we tend to just look at the hard costs, subscription versus one-off purchase, and it ends up being a wash. So, you end up getting all the benefits for about the same amount of money, and
Right.
it's a good deal.
Okay, thank you. And then we have one other question coming in. For Microsoft 365, is it customizable for company requirements, or is it just fixed set out of the box?
I think I can help answer that. Yeah, so it's highly customizable, and that's largely in part due to even how you would acquire Microsoft 365. I mean, this is where the complexity comes in. I mean, Microsoft licensing has been, traditionally very complex and difficult to navigate. But that said, it's because of what you can get versus what you probably don't need. So it's highly customizable out of the box. You can pick and choose what you want. For example, Microsoft 365, like I keep saying, it includes 25 plus software applications. But if you wanted to just get Exchange Online, you could. And then even further, with Teams, you could get Teams, but not the voice and video capability, or you could get Teams plus the voice and video capability. So it is very customizable, highly complex. You want to go into it saying, I don't think I need that, and then come go live, you realize, oh man, we forgot that. So yeah, I think highly customizable. Adrienne, any thought there? Because I know the licensing SKUs for you guys were fairly complex.
Right. Yeah, no, Kelly, I echo everything that you said. It is very highly customizable. And I think that's a big, sell for the Office 365 Suites product. So, yeah, nothing else to add, but definitely I agree with everything that you shared.
Great. And with that, I'd like to thank you guys again. Thank you for all the great questions from the audience. And thank you, Jeff, Adrienne, and Kelly, for sharing not only your journey, your expertise, advice. I wish I had you guys when I was going through it all. I'm going to open up a quick poll just to see how many people would like to do a deeper dive into the different solutions. So you should see that shortly. If you could fill that out, we'll get more information from you guys. I would like to share my screen. I just wanted to acknowledge the other organizations that help to make these events possible. These are the true sponsors. Thank you. And then to close out the session has been recorded and we will share it with you if you visit the website. You can indicate interest by providing feedback through a feedback form as well. That should be in the chat shortly. And then please fill out the survey if you would like to learn more. And I always appreciate information on whether or not this information is valuable in helping you on your decision-making process in innovation and digital transformation. So thank you for doing that. Adrienne and Kelly have generously offered to share their email address in case anybody would like to contact them and ask them questions directly. They're open to it. Jeff, I didn't get to ask you before, but we can do that as well.
Sure.
And then I want to make sure that TRUE's efforts are helpful in helping organizations in Hawaii learn about and adopt solutions. With that, I'd like to highlight 2 upcoming TRUE events. As part of the Women in Tech series, we'll be interviewing Julie Yamamoto, General Operations Manager of Hui CarShare. She's going to be in a Women in Tech event on October 21st. We're excited to learn how she took the idea and built it to what it is today. I'd like to reinforce that TRUE focuses on providing and sharing solutions. TRUE is vendor and tool agnostic, and we are solutions focused. With that, there's another event on October 15th to do a session on Salesforce where Dina Tierney, CEO of Pacific Point, will share how 2 state agencies have leveraged Salesforce to transition off of legacy systems to handle case management, customer service, call center, and more. She'll be joined by Dean Hazama from DCCA, Paula Aila from DHHS. They each have different ways of approaching their digital transformation, proving that there's more than one way to approach these projects. I look forward to more collaboration as we face multiple challenges, from combating the pandemic to diversifying Hawaii's economy to accelerating the adoption of technology and innovation to make our organizations more productive and competitive. I wanted to thank you again for joining us today and for your continued support. Thank you guys very much again. We appreciate your sharing.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks, Adrienne.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for doing this. Take care and stay
Take care,
safe.
everybody. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.